So you guys enjoyed yesterday when we did the Q&A?
Yeah.
Right? Helped out a little bit?
All right.
All right, so we're going to finish. We're going to do the 25 questions that we have here, and then we'll do chapter 9. That's the only chapter we'll do today, most likely, okay? So don't worry, we're still on schedule according to what we said yesterday, so we'll keep with that. Here's what we got. Ownership of real estate by one person alone is known as A. You forgot how it goes?
Oh.
A, severalty. B, tenancy in common. C, survivorship. Or D, sole proprietorship. Correct answer is?
I said D.
You say D?
I said D.
Okay, raise your hand if you say A. Raise your hand if you say B. C? D. Okay. All right, so here's the thing. Sole proprietorship is the business form of ownership. Okay? So that's not what it says here. It says ownership of real estate by one person alone. So we're talking about individuals, not business. By one person alone is called severalty. It's a tenancy in severalty. Severalty is severed from everybody else. So every time you see severalty, means one owner. And that one owner could be a sole proprietor. It could be a corporation. It could be an LLC. Does that make sense? So severalty just means it's one individual owner of the property. Good? Next, 27. It says the buyer of a condo apartment. What page are we at? Sorry. 312. 312. Okay.
You can go over it.
27. The buyer of a condominium apartment receives A, a proprietary lease, B, individual property tax bill, C, stock that is considered personal property, or D, a life estate.
Oh,
B,
C.
C. Who says A? Raise your hand. Who says B? Raise your hand. C. D. Okay, so for the three of you, don't raise your hand. All right, here's the thing. It says the buyer of a condo, apartment building, receives, right? When you buy a condo, it's different than a co-op. If it was a co-op, you would get a lease because you're a tenant shareholder, right? So you get stock and a proprietary lease to occupy the space, right? So no guarantees, but you occupy the space. B says individual tax bill. In condos, all the bills are individual because you are an individual owner, right? The other ones, stock, again, that's for co-ops. So C would be for a co-op, not for a condo. And D, life estate simply means you own it until one person dies, whoever the person's on the deed. So by ruling out a few of these, you know the correct answer would be B, an individual tax bill. Because in the co-op, the building, the corporation that owns the building gets a tax bill for the whole building. In a condo, it's your own individual unit. Any questions here? Say it again.
No, I just didn't read the word right. You said apartment, not building. I was looking at like what the building.
All right, so let me address two things there. One, it says condominium. Doesn't say co-op. Okay? Condominium is always individual tax bill. If it's a co-op, I mean individual tax bill, mortgage, insurance, it's all individual in the condo because you own your units only. Okay? Whether it says apartment or building, if it's a condo, it says condo, that's your own unit. Okay? A co-op, you share the units and you have the right to occupy one of them. Does that make sense? All right? So that's what you need to look at. If it's condo, think of an individual right away. If it's co-op, it's a group. Got it? Yes? Yes. Grace was late because she was adding me on Facebook.
There's a game there, so I got drunk there.
Oh, you went to see the Portuguese team play? Huh? They're being uploaded. Actually, today I finished uploading the last one. I have real estate taxes, the one we did yesterday. There's an error with it, so I need to figure out what's going on. But you should have them today, online. It took a little bit over 26 hours to upload everything. All right, 28. It says, Mr. and Mrs. Brown buy a home together soon after they are married. Okay, so no, they're married. This is the way I work things out, so you guys know. Married, keyword, underlined, so you know if they're married. With nothing specific stated in the deed about their ownership. So nothing specific, meaning we did not address how they're going to own the property, if they're going to separate their shares or not. Nothing specific stated, right? Mr. Brown, who pays for the house, is killed in a car crash. Okay? And then you guys were asking me why I always kill the woman in my examples, because anyway, Mrs. Brown now owns A, the whole house only if Mr. Brown left his half to her in his will. B, nothing because she furnished none of the purchase price herself. C, the whole house in severalty. Or D, half with their children owning the other half.
C.
Does everybody agree with C?
Yes. Yes.
Anybody that disagrees with C? Okay, good. So why would it be C? Because what?
It's one owner also.
It becomes one owner. But how did she get entitled? Because A says only if he left in the will.
But there's no specification.
About what?
They married
If they married.
If they're married.
If they live in the same house.
The key words. Let's go back to the key words. They bought the home after they got married.
After 19.
So that means, nope, forget that. They're married, period. And they bought a home together. That's what we're addressing here. So automatically, if we bought a home together, that means our names are there. That's what we're saying. So automatically, we have a tenancy by the entirety. Remember, there's tenancy in severalty, right? There's tenants in common. There's joint tenants and tenancy by the entirety. So key words, married automatically with nothing else stated by the entirety, right? Therefore, if one of them dies, the other one acquires all the shares.
Right.
Good so
They're
far?
not speaking about kids or anything.
But even if they were,
No, I'm just saying, like, that wouldn't even be an option.
because they're married, not an option. Only after the last one passes away is when it goes to the other heirs. So automatically, the first heir here would be the spouse. Automatically.
But
Okay?
I'm a little confused because when I took deeds and will in college, they did say, like, unless it's stated on a deed that in case of the husband dies, then all his share goes to his kid. Like there were examples where the wife couldn't touch anything.
This one has
unless
no specification.
No, I'm just saying. He's saying that, like,
It's automatic to the spouse because they bought together. It's like, okay,
okay, yeah,
Heidi,
I
Heidi, we
understand now
married.
that.
We bought together, so it's my name there and your name there. So this is the right of survivorship, just like a
now
joint.
that you say that they bought together makes sense.
Okay, and this is why I tried to, yesterday I tried and today I tried for you guys to pay attention to the wording, because just one thing off, if you don't pay attention, one thing off, and that's it, you answer the wrong answer, right? So it is the wording, yes.
So could you make this example in a way where they weren't married? Like, what happens then?
Well, if they're divorced, then who gets it?
Wait, excuse me, is the answer C?
I'm sorry?
Is it C?
The answer is C, yes. So if they were divorced, who's the heirs of the
The children.
ex?
The children.
Whoever's named in the will or children by default. Does that make sense? So would the ex-spouse get anything? No, the ex-spouse keeps his or her half. but the half of the ex-spouse that died goes to heirs.
And is it the will first and then the heirs in that case? Like,
What do you
is
mean?
that priority, whoever's in the will?
The will is the will.
Okay.
So unless there's something that's not specified in the will, like for instance, I purchased a home, that's why the wills are a living thing, meaning you have to keep updating. I decided to purchase an apartment building today, right? I did not update my will. If my will specifically stated that only like 2 or 3 properties go to my kids, but I did not address this last one as an example, then this last one is going to be governed by the rule of the state. Does that make sense? So the will determines who gets what. If it's not specified, a particular item is not specified in the will, then it goes by whatever the state says. Okay? Good? Questions? All right. 29. It says either co-owner may go to court and ask for property to be divided except in the case of A, tenants in common, B, joint tenants, C, life tenants, or D, tenants by the entirety.
You know something? I answered this question remembering all those little things you drew, and I know I was so confused on.
All right. And
My
what was the answer?
answer, I put D.
Okay. Who says it's A? B? C? D? Don't raise your hand. Guys, whoever's not raising your hand, there's no incorrect answer. We're just throwing stuff out there. We're just testing, okay? But try to give an answer, okay? Participate. It's very important that you do participate. If you're wrong, you're wrong. There's nothing wrong about that. We're learning still. Okay? When we get to the final exam, then it's different because I won't go, hey, who says A, and let me explain, right? But right now is the time to participate as much as you can, and there's no wrong answer, and there's no wrong question if you guys want to ask a question. You got it? Because many times I have to explain. Even though sometimes it sounds silly, right? It's still an explanation, regardless. Okay? So the correct answer is D as in David. Because I just said in the previous one, tenancy by the entirety, right of survivorship, right? It's husband and wife. When do husband and wife sue each other to ask for the property to be divided? Divorce. So it's not a lawsuit to divide property amongst partners, it's a divorce. So there's what the lawsuit was between partners is partition. Okay? There's a lawsuit to partition is, hey, I want to separate the property, my asset, your asset. If I keep the first floor, you keep the second floor, as an example, right? If it's not possible, then the judge will force the property to be sold. And that's a judicial partition, right? But between husband and wife, I cannot sue you to separate the property. Either I'm divorcing you altogether and include properties to be divided, or I cannot sue you. Imagine me suing you, hey, we're still married, but that property right there, we need to separate.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So a husband cannot sue the wife, and the wife cannot sue the husband. It has to be a divorce where we settle our affairs. Make sense? Yes.
What is a tenant by entirety again?
Husband and wife purchasing property together while married. Automatically, tenants by entirety.
And tenants in common is like,
Me and you, are we married?
landlord and tenant?
Are we married?
No.
Man, it's not that bad. Just saying. Anyway, so Ms. Clemens,
Yeah.
we're not married, right? So we're going to buy a property together. Automatically, we don't specify anything else. We are tenants in common.
Or
Meaning-
business partners.
We possess the property in common. Okay? Now, partnerships is different. That's a business form of ownership. You can have a partnership with them, and I can have a partnership with them. And we still be tenants in common. Our partnerships will be tenants in common. So just the fact there's 2 more owners that are not married to each other, 2 more owners. Could be, make sure your cell phones are on silent, I appreciate it. But 2 more owners, not married to each other, are tenants in common automatically. Yes.
Tenants in common, that's a little tricky.
What is tricky?
So, tenants in common.
To not think about landlord or tenants. Tenancy is occupying space. Yes.
I'm just moving into an apartment with my girlfriend. I will purchase the place. That's the nursing common.
Because you're not married, automatically, if both of you are on the deed, you're tenants in common.
Oh, unmarried.
Unmarried.
Shacking up.
So, next.
What about joint tenants? French fries? What's joint tenants?
From your business.
What's joint tenants?
Joint tenants, we can choose to be joint tenants. It's pretty much a business venture. It's the same as tenants in common. It's just we chose what's going to happen when one of us dies. See, when you die, I acquire all your assets in the property. Okay? All right, we're good? $30. It says the Smiths bought their home on the ocean in 1954 for $17,000. This year, they decided to move to Florida, and they sold the house for $325,000. The IRS says their profit will be, and before you answer, let me break down this question real quick. The Smiths, that means?
Married.
Married. Keyword right there, married. Let's start with that. They bought it for $17,000. They sold for $325,000. Remember that, because you have to know what's the profit. $325,000 minus 17. Okay. Now, A, taxed as ordinary income. B, taxed at a favorable capital gain rates. C, subject to tax on only $75,000. Or D, completely free from any federal tax.
D.
I said C.
Raise your hand if you say A. B. You said A. B. C.
D.
Who says D? Cool. So here's the thing. Yesterday, we ran over this exemption at the end. If it's married couple, filing jointly, there's an exemption of up to $500,000 on taxable profit. Right? Did they make $500,000 in profit? Less, right? So if the exemption is up to $500,000 and they made less than $500,000,
They made it.
then do they have to pay taxes?
No.
No. So the answer is D. They don't have to pay any taxes. They're totally exempt because they're married, filing jointly.
It was my math that was wrong.
Remember?
I'm not good at math.
I thought it had to be 500,000.
How?
I didn't remember us up to.
Because I really didn't pay attention to the numbers. If I would have paid attention to the numbers, then I would have been like, okay, they didn't make as much
Okay.
profit.
Heidi, say it louder. Say it louder what you just said right now because that's very important. You didn't what?
Pay attention to the numbers.
Stop right there. Keywords. Did not pay attention and decided to answer regardless. Okay? In the school exam, state exam, if you don't pay attention, I'm going to enforce this as much as I can. If you don't pay attention, you will.
Fail.
See, you guys know the right answer because yesterday I was very surprised. You guys were like 80% or so incorrect answers. But all of you are answering based on instinct and not
No,
based on reading.
no,
No, you
Easy,
repeat
easy,
it.
not always.
Easy. I said all of you because if it's not you, it's her. It's not her, it's her. There's one. So I'm including all in the fact that you answer based on instinct.
I'm sorry.
Okay? Don't apologize. I just said it. It's good that we do this. So you guys realize how this goes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, cool. So, 31. New Jersey offers partial exemptions, not full exemption, partial exemptions from property taxes to eligible A, veterans, B, single mothers, C, government employees, or D, widows. Who thinks is A? All right, damn. B,
Oh, yeah.
C, D. All right, so Unanimous, right? So the answer is A, partial exemptions to eligible veterans. Not all veterans get it, that's why, right? And what they get is $250 off. 32. Special assessment is a form of property tax used to pay for A, deficit in a town or county's budget, B, one-time tax on the transfer of real estate, C, building fund for a school or library, or D, improvement like sidewalks in certain areas.
D.
Okay? Who says it's A?
A.
Who says B? C? D. Majority. So, for those of you that said A, your general property tax is to cover the deficit. What they charge you every year on a regular basis is to cover the deficit on the city or town's budget. Special assessments, though, are public improvement taxes. Remember that?
Yes.
Special assessments, public improvement taxes, sidewalks, street lights, all that stuff. Okay?
Red Bull game
It's not the Red Bulls.
is the Red Bull game.
No,
I have no idea
No,
how
it's
the
Benfica.
traffic is over there.
I know I passed by it, and I made it. Just kidding. I did pass by it, and I still made it, but anyway.
But you passed early.
I passed earlier. So special assessment is also improvement taxes, but that's public improvement. It's not the improving of your property, it's public improvement. So, like the answer D says, sidewalks, street lights.
Because the school and library.
General tax. It says building fund,
Right, yeah.
okay? What's the
I know
question?
the answer.
What is the question?
I was just explaining.
It's okay. Did you get it wrong? Okay.
I mean, I choose D, but still, you explain the A and I getting it.
Okay.
I was just telling her that the way that she could learn it is like the deficit is general property tax, and then special assessment is improvement.
Yeah, so, yeah, pretty much what I
Yeah.
was saying. And every time you see deficit is based on your yearly regular taxes. Improvement taxes or public improvement taxes, they're special. It's an additional fee that they add to your taxes for sidewalks, streetlights, curbs, stuff like that. Okay? 33. Oh, we gotta do math on this one.
Yeah, so I have my phone out, calculate.
Huh?
So I have my phone out, you can calculate.
You got your phone out. Okay, when we get to the math chapter, you gotta have a calculator, brother. Not your phone. Okay, when we get to chapter 22, no
You
phones.
can have it, you have to bring it to the test.
You have to bring it to the test as well. So, Jerry's home is worth $160,000. And in this town, assessments run at 60% of market value. If the tax rate is 37 mils, how much is his property tax bill? I'll give you some time to answer that one. Write it down, a piece of paper, go ahead.
Wait, what was Mel's again?
$1,000 of a dollar.
Oh, man.
Nope.
0.001.
0.001.
4 mils would be 0.04.
You want the book or not? All right, you guys doing the math? As you're doing your math, let me start by saying, taxes are based on assessed value, they're not based on market value. So what's the first step?
Dividing?
Nope. 160 is not the value we need.
60%.
We need to figure out what's the 60% of 160. Go ahead. Sorry, Ms. Jones.
I just don't know how to calculate after the 37 mils.
Okay, we're getting there.
Yeah,
Okay, so after you do that, what do you do?
So it's 537.
537? I don't know, let's see. All right, this is an individual exercise. Go ahead. Thank you very much.
$96,000.
$160,000 times 60% is?
And we said it's 1,000.
Okay, so that's the assessed value. That's the first step. Now that you got the assessed value, you need to apply mills.
I think I have the answer.
So that's the
You think you have the answer? You're not sure you have the answer?
I mean, I'm confident in my answer. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying I'm confident in my answer.
Okay.
Oh, I'm comfortable.
Would you like to share your answer?
I think it's 35.52.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
See?
But I don't know. I think so too. But mine's
Yeah, 35.52.
It's in the billions, you said?
How do we calculate the 37 mils?
A mil is 1/1000 of a dollar, or 0.001. So if it's 37 mils, it's 0.037.
Oh, 0.0037?
Oh, 0.037.
0.037.
Oh.
So it's 3.7%.
So
0.037.
Oh, yes, it is 354.
So 4 mils would be 0.004.
Say it again.
4 mils would be
Oh, yeah,
0.004.
of the 10.
So if
Because
I'm
it's
not
a mill.
mistaken,
Yeah.
You're not mistaken, it is C.
Pay for the math.
Yes.
Yeah.
after all my math is not that bad.
10th place.
Wait.
That's what it is.
Where I messed up was I forgot the 0 point and 3.
I think it might be
What?
37 times.
Yeah, put 0.37.
0.001 and then you came with.
And I came in 35,000, but I knew that I messed up somewhere, and I knew that was the number I'm supposed to get. 35.
Say it again?
I can just tell because the number that I had.
Oh, I can.
Hold the math.
I had 35,000.
I
Five
got
point- 35 point.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm visual.
You did it on paper?
Yeah.
The way to make that percentage is just by percentage. That's right. 60% is always 60 of 100.
Right.
So 55
So in this case,
I didn't get that.
37 mils equals to 0.37%.
So I got
So they look at the number. Then you just have to add the zero and calculate. You have to add the 0 point and yeah.
hundreds,
I can't.
thousands,
So
Zero.
Zero.
0.37%.
That's what I wrote. I didn't finish.
Then equals to this.
Give you 1 second, sorry. All right. All right, so the question says the value of the house is 160. This is market value. Correct? Then it says assessments are 60%. So that's assessment rate. Okay? Then it says the tax rate is 37 mils. Tax rate. Okay, so these are the numbers we got. And the question is, what is the tax bill? So the first thing we need to do is figure out what is the 60%, right? So in chapter 22, which is math, I'll show you a different way, quicker way, easier way. But 160 times 60% on your calculator or times 0.60 equals 96,000, right? Okay, so 96,000 is the assessed value. No, no space here. Assessed value. This is the number that the taxes are based on. Okay, it's not the market value, it's the assessed value. Whatever the township thinks your property is worth. Good? Then we have 37 mils. 37 mils equals 0.037. Because 1 mil equals 0.001 or 1/1000 of a dollar. Every mil is 0.001. If there's 37, then it's 0.001 times 37, which is 0.037. Good so far?
Yeah, it's not following me.
It's not following you? No? Okay, hopefully by tomorrow that'll be correct. Are we there yet? Let's see if this works. There you go. Has nothing to do with it. All right, 0.37 mils. Right? So the question is, how much is the property tax bill? Well, the tax bill is 96,000 value times 0.037. And that is 3552.
They're always gonna give you the mil, like on the questions?
Well, no, usually I said in New Jersey, it's per hundreds. So most likely the question in the school and state exam is per hundreds. You might have a question about mils, that's why we have to go over it, but the most common is per hundreds.
Which is 0.001%, right?
No, that's a mil.
Okay.
Per hundred is percent. So if they said $3 per every 100, it would be 3%.
Okay, which
Or
was
in
easier.
this case, if they said $3.7, so $3.70 per every 100, it would be 3.7. Yes.
I think that pretty much answered my question. It was, so in New Jersey, it's not that same format. It's actually, we're taking one of those zeros out after the decimal.
Yes. Questions?
So it's $37 per 100?
No, if they said $37 per 100, did everybody get this? Yes? Let me just erase it to explain that. If they said property is 160,000, right? The same 60%, you know the assessed value is 96,000. Now, they said market or the tax rate here in this town is $3.70 per every $100. Okay? Now, $3.70 per every 100. The easiest way to look at, I told you it's percent, right? So, if I have $100, because it's per 100, I have $100, and they say $30.70 per every 100. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to take these out, and we're going to have 100%. Does that make sense? All you got to do is take the dollar sign out and put the percentage at the end. So if it's per $100, it means per cent. Per every 100%, it's 3.7%. So 96,000 times 3.7% is 3,552. You got it? Yes.
I just found an easy way to do that.
You found an easy way? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So with the 100 there, you see there's 2 zeros. Take the 2 zeros off 96,000 and times that 3.70 and get the answer.
Why would you times it by 3.70?
Because that's the rate you put there.
Okay. So you take 2 zeros out of the 96.
Take the 2 zeros out
All right.
of it. It's 960 times 3.70.
Correct. So when I get to the math class, usually what I say, there's 3 different ways to get this done. It's either you take the zeros right away, which is something I'll address then. You take the zeros right away, or you convert it like I just did to percentage, right? Or you divide this whole value by 100. So at one point, either that or you're going to get billions, right? And if you get billions, something is wrong. You forgot to do what? Divide by 100, because it's per every $100, right? So usually, so that's correct. That's what we do in at least in my country. That's how we figure things out. If it's per 100, just take 2 zeros out and it's done, right? And when I get to the math chapter, I give you as many options as I can. Whatever is easiest for you is what you follow. Okay? Any questions here? Questions?
No, I get it.
All right. 34. It says the lien with priority on the given parcel of real estate would usually be A, a mortgage recorded 5 years ago, B, a mortgage recorded this year, C, the current tax year's property taxes, or D, a judgment filed 4 years ago. Who says A? Who says B? C? What about D? Cool. Who doesn't say anything?
I want to change my answer.
You want to change your answer?
You're not allowed to do that, man.
Do you want to call somebody at home to support?
The taxi.
All right. So, who said A again? Why A?
Because whoever records first is the one that gets paid first.
Okay. So B would definitely be a second. All right. So that is correct. Halfway there. Okay. What about a judgment that was filed 4 years ago? That's still after A, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, A would still be the most accurate answer so far.
But either
But I told you guys, wait, I told you guys that the first one to get paid is always the government.
Oh.
What threw you off is current year. See, what they're saying is not that the taxes are current, they're saying that this year's taxes.
that was right.
So if it hasn't been paid yet, C.
Yes.
C.
So it was C.
C. So if it hasn't been paid yet, it doesn't matter. What we're saying is that this year's taxes are the first thing to get paid. Then comes that mortgage that was 5 years ago. Then comes that judgment that was 4 years ago. And then comes that second mortgage that was filed this year. Does this make sense? So if we're looking at the order, it would be C, A, D, B. Got it? Who gets paid first? C, A, D, B. Which one's the correct answer? C. Did everybody get it? Got it? Yes? We're good? Current throws you off. Most people That's why they answer incorrectly. They think current. If it's current, why would they have to be paid? It's paid. They said current year. They didn't say the bill. The bill itself is current. Okay. 35. Redlining. Redlining is defined as A. Steering home seekers to a particular neighborhood. B. Drawing red lines on the local map indicating where the agent wants to look for listings. C. Denying or restricting loans in a certain neighborhood. Or D. A zoning procedure.
D.
Redlining. Who says it's A? B?
Just throw it out
No, don't just throw out there. It's whatever you feel it is. C. D.
C. What happened to C?
I said C.
No, you didn't.
I didn't say C?
Yeah.
I think I did.
I didn't hear C.
Okay. All right, let me ask again. C.
C.
All right. No. Okay.
No, I wanna change my answer.
You don't get a lifeline. I mean, Chris wasted it. Chris already wasted it. All right. Steering is channeling people to or away from a particular area on the basis of race, right? So that is incorrect because redlining, steering in itself is already a crime. Redlining is a different type of crime. Blockbusting is a different type of crime. Okay, they're all the same category, right? Still, we're talking about discrimination. Blockbusting, steering, and redlining. So A is incorrect. Drawing red lines, really? Definitely not redlining, right? A zoning procedure. We're in surgery here? There's a procedure going on? No. Correct answer is C. It's denying a mortgage or insurance.
Oh, that's right.
Because you're from a particular area, regardless of your qualifications. So you qualify for this mortgage, oh, but you live in Newark. Nope. You're not getting a mortgage or you're not getting that insurance. So every time you see redlining, it's denying or restricting loans or insurance in a particular neighborhood.
How do you know if that happened?
Nowadays, it's difficult. What they do is they charge you high interest rates or high premiums, and you're the one that denies them. They don't deny you. And how do you know? How do you know if it happens? You apply, and they say no. That's happening. Simple. Okay. Yes.
So you said that the person deny you, not the.
No, loan.
Uh-huh.
So the bank or whoever the lender is denying issuing a loan to you because you live in an area, particular area. The insurance company denies you insurance because you live in a particular area. That's what it is. So it's not a person. It's the bank that you applied for mortgage, or the bank or the company you applied for insurance.
And how we know they're really getting discriminated?
Once they say no. That's it. If they deny. The key word here is denying, mainly. Okay? 36. It says Civil Rights Act of 1866. Ooh, if you guys don't know this. It says, what? A? Why do you say A right away? Race and color. Very good. So Civil Rights Act of 1866. Every time you hear 1866, it's race and color. I didn't even have to explain anything else, right? Good. Do you remember the case that came to solidify this rule right here? Jones versus Mayer. The V. Myers was good.
Myers, Myers. Let's go.
He was close enough.
Don't want to give an answer.
No, you weren't. But it was good. Some people got stuck at Jones versus something. Anyway, 37. Federal civil rights legislation forbids housing discrimination based on A, political affiliation, B, source of income, C, country of origin, or D, prison record. Who says A? Raise your hand. B, C, D. All right. You're going to keep your hand up?
No.
I don't know which one you're answering.
B.
Oh. So whoever said A, which nobody said, would be incorrect. Whoever said B is incorrect. Because we're talking about federal. Now, state laws say that you cannot discriminate based on income if it's lawful source of income.
State law.
That's state law. We're asking about federal. So it's very important that you know the difference between these two.
Prison record?
Remember I said that when we were in this chapter, chapter 4? So prison record, it is federal.
But
But can we discriminate based on prison record?
No.
Yes, we can. So therefore, it would not be the correct answer. It says here forbids discrimination.
Oh, forbids, yes.
Ah. So
Country
federal
origin.
law, wait. So it's federal law, first of all. So federal rules apply. D is prison record. Yes, you can discriminate, but they're asking what can't you discriminate against?
Right.
So we eliminated A, we eliminated B, and D is definitely not. But country of origin, 1968. There was an amendment to the 1866 law that added religion and national origin as protected classes. You guys remember that? 1866, race and color. 1968, they added religion and national origin, or country of origin.
It took
Betty,
102
can
years
you-
for that.
It took that long, yeah.
you,
But it took way more to get the first one.
what is forbidden?
What is for it?
Not allowed.
Review.
Kind of like not allowed.
You said in Spanish?
I said in Portuguese.
Well, with the accent was in Spanish.
Yeah.
But it's just that was a little change.
Master of my
If you want to Latin, Japanese, French, or anything like that, I can too.
Say it.
No, I have to Google it first. I said I can, I didn't say I know. So, all right. So forbids, prohibits. You cannot discriminate. That's what it says. Okay? 38. It says, although a property owner may be exempted sometimes from discrimination laws, a real estate licensee, A, is exempt only if he or she is also the owner. B, can list the property for sale noting the exemption. C, can advertise the noted exemption. Or D, may not participate in the transaction in any way. Does everybody agree with D, or is there anybody that disagrees? Why do you disagree, Ida?
I think it's a C.
You think it's C? Why?
No, because when you have to,
Okay, let me pause you for a second there, right? What we're saying here is a real estate licensee, meaning us, right? It says when is the property owner exempted if they use a real estate licensee?
It does.
And the answer is?
yes.
The only exemption is if you're selling on your own, so for sale by owner or for rent by owner, right? And you're not using discriminatory advertising. The moment you use a salesperson, broker, or you practice discriminatory advertising, you cannot the salesperson cannot participate in this at all. We are bound by laws, okay? The homeowner is exempted. We are not. So if the homeowner uses us, okay, they may be exempted, but if they use us, you cannot participate, okay? Real estate licensees, we cannot discriminate at all. So although a property owner may be exempt, real estate licensees are not. So if a homeowner intends to discriminate, can we participate? No, we must refuse the listing. Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, you cannot discriminate. Oh, I don't care. Well, I'm sorry, I cannot do business with you. Simple. It says, although the property owner may be exempt sometimes from discrimination laws, thanks to 1968, some exemptions, owner-occupied, stuff like that, right? A real estate licensee cannot discriminate at all. We are not exempted in any way.
So if a seller calls me up and they say, I don't want someone who's under the age of 23, right? That's a part of discrimination.
Under the age of 23, no problem. Under the age of 18, we start having a problem. Familial status is 18 or younger. Okay? 18 or younger.
I sell a course and I'm like, I don't want anybody who smokes tobacco. I don't care. Is that
Tobacco?
discrimination? Yeah.
That's not discrimination. Not at all. The only discrimination terms are based on race, color, religion, national origin, disabilities, gender, and familial status.
Not age.
Not age. Age is there, but for under 18, that's familial status. For instance, if I say no children,
They have properties like that say no children.
I know, but that's unless they're senior citizens, like that area is like for 55 plus or 62 or older, right? Or if they live there.
What about,
The only exemption is if I'm owner occupied, remember?
what about animals and pets?
Animals.
Yeah.
If it's a guide or service dog, you cannot discriminate. I mean, guide or service pet, cannot discriminate. But against pets themselves, yes, you can say no pets.
Yeah, but you can say no to live there every 2 years, right? It's like no kids.
No.
No.
No. So that's a different thing.
Okay.
That's federal law, and all it says, if you own no more than 3 single-family homes, and you don't use a salesperson, broker, or discriminatory advertising, and if you're not the most recent occupant of the property, you can only discriminate once every 2 years. So the homeowner can discriminate once every 2 years if they did not live there.
If he's not living.
If he was not the most recent occupant, they were not living there recently. I know, it's the most ridiculous federal law ever, but that's the exemption. Okay? Questions? I know, when it gets to discrimination, it's very confusing. I'm sorry? I'm 39.
You're still on 38?
No, I'm on 39 right now. Using scare tactics regarding the possible change in the makeup of the neighborhood while soliciting for listings is called A, redlining, B, steering, C, blockbusting, or D, harassment.
C.
Who says A? B, C, D. All right. For those that said C, blockbusting, that is panic peddling or scaring people into selling their homes because of the change in the neighborhood, because the minority group is moving into the neighborhood. Steering is when you take a customer to or away from an area based on their race. Okay? You got it? That's steering. But it's scare tactics, associate scare tactics or panic peddling, associate that to blockbusting. Hey, there's this group of people coming into the neighborhood. Sell now before. Does that make sense?
So it's C.
Yeah.
So, can you say again, how do we think of steering for?
So scare tactics, anytime you're scaring the homeowner into selling because, hey, there's people coming that will change the value.
That's blockbusting.
Blockbusting.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I got that right, but I'm saying for steering, you said something.
Steering is taking the client either to or away from a particular area
Because of the race?
because of race.
Okay.
So it's C.
C is the correct answer. Hmm. 40. We're only 10 away. Mrs. Townsend is advertising for a tenant for the other half of her home. Which of these ads would violate fair housing laws? A, no pets. B, no smokers. C, no children. Or D, none of the above.
C.
A,
D.
B.
D.
D.
She lives in the house, so she's entitled to.
Just recent call.
Does it say she lives in the house?
No.
The other half
Oh,
of
yeah,
her
her
home.
home.
Home doesn't mean house.
Yeah, it's true.
Doesn't say she lives there.
Yeah,
Says
it
her.
says other half.
She's allowed to
Oh, I have one half of my home already rented.
But none of these are
It
still.
doesn't say owner occupant.
No.
I could own a home and rent half of the home, and then I'm trying to rent the other half. Doesn't say owner occupant.
Well, like,
But let me
you know,
take the
pet, you
question.
said about
That's
animals.
Right.
You said,
Wait, one at a time. You started.
I said just limit to the question. It is none of the above because under fair
Nope.
so
housing
it's
laws.
C, no children.
No children.
Because it's only have to be,
C. No
only
children.
at 62,
True,
years,
true,
like,
true.
Yes. Remember, unless it specifically states that they live in the property,
Okay.
it's owner occupied. Unless it specifically states owner
Mrs.
occupied.
Townsend, who lives in her home.
Something like that.
It's a C.
Okay.
How many homes can we own?
Many.
Many. Okay? I rented half of it, and now I'm renting the other half of my home.
Okay, but it's a C.
C. Sorry.
Why not children?
Sorry?
I don't understand why it's C.
Well, no children is a protected class, familiar status. That's based on federal laws. You cannot say no children allowed unless it's owner occupied. That's the only exemption to owner occupied.
You're right.
but what about if there's only one room?
First of all, you cannot be renting rooms
I mean,
No.
no, an
unless you're
apartment,
registered with the city
no, like
and
an
they allow.
apartment, like an
But that's
apartment.
okay,
with
could
one
be a
room.
single mom with his kid. Or dad.
Apartment.
No, what, like, but if you said it like, you rented an apartment with one room and they have, they're, like, boyfriend,
Oh, you're saying the apartment that I'm renting only has one bedroom.
yes, and they marry and have a kid.
So it's not about the children, it is about health and safety. So I can limit the amount of people in the household.
Yeah, they could, she could
So
have,
2 people per every room. I can do that.
yeah, or she could have a clause where she says, I don't think this space is minute or something.
So
She
how
should
you
say
will
that as a
advertise
landlord.
that with not discriminating?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Say it again.
How you will advertise that with no,
Without discrimination.
Advertise what?
like the, you renting one apartment with one room?
The thing is, I'm renting an apartment with 1 bedroom to 2 people. That will be the advertisement.
Oh, okay, as long as.
Or I don't have to say any of that. When you show up in front of my door, I say, hey, I'm sorry, it's only limited to 2 people. No, you cannot add a child or a third person or whatever. It's only limited to 2 bodies in this.
You should be careful,
Yeah.
because then like you're discriminating.
No.
They can say whatever.
Yeah.
It's health and safety regulations, and I'm
Right.
entitled to say only 2 per room.
Yeah.
No problem.
Right.
Okay?
Question.
41.
Can
41.
can they take you out of the house?
Who?
If you,
Bless you.
like if she was saying, they're married, but then, for example, they have kids.
They decide to get pregnant.
Yeah, I don't know, she had a
Okay.
kid.
By law, 6 months the baby can stay in the room with you. Beyond 6 months, has to have its own room.
So.
Unless you're a single parent, then they allow up to 5 years.
As an owner, so if the baby 5 years old, they can stay in the room if you're a single parent? Okay, so,
Just make sure you don't bring anybody else home. Then you get kicked out. Yeah.
just, can you repeat that again?
If you're a single parent,
Uh-huh.
you're entitled to occupy, 2 people occupy the room. So that's you and your child. If there's a third person, regardless of being the daddy or the mother, if there's a third person, you get kicked out. That's 3 people.
But you said the kid is allowed to stay with you as a single parent until he's 5 years old, or she's
Yeah.
5 years old. After that, they
You have to
go
have their
off
own
the-
room.
Alright,
So what you'll notice is when you go lease, especially in areas that are property managed, they say, oh, you got a child, the max that they can stay is up to 6 months if there's 2 parents. Or they'll tell you, hey, after once they reach the age of 5, you got to go find something else.
So after 6 months, the person, if I rent an apartment and they get pregnant, I could tell them like after 6 months they have to move.
If they're pregnant, you're going to give them a 6-month courtesy call.
Every kid.
Hey.
But who's gonna do that?
A lot of
They
people.
They do?
Yeah.
A lot of people. I had that. What happened to me when one of my babies was in the oven. You know, that was the answer. Hey, as soon as they're born, you got 6 months. Timer starts.
It happened to you.
And you have to move.
It's law. It's not the landlord.
The law, it's
State and federal law.
Okay, but it's the law.
If they let you stay, they nice.
Hold on. Yes.
What's the law? The law is like if you have the apartment have 2 rooms and you have 3 kids, cannot be.
Well, now the question is it 3 boys? Is it 3 girls? Or it's a mix?
Mix.
Okay. So now it starts getting complicated and it's not for this class. So next.
Aww.
Aww.
Not my monkey.
It's not my monkey. No, so you have to search. There's limitations. What they consider healthy, safe environment for the kids as well. Okay? So if you have 8-year-old kids and it's 2 boys and a girl, as an example, they can actually kick you out, and DIFAS can, well, not DIFAS anymore, but it's, I forgot what the name was, but they can come in and take action. Because at that point, boys and girls start discovering, exploring and discovering certain things. So it's not healthy or safe at all for them to be all together. That's what they assume. That's what they assume. 41. Ready? Which of the following is permitted under Federal Fair Housing Act? Permitted, key word. We're not prohibiting, right? It's not forbidden. It's permitted, allowed, right? A, advertising property for sale suitable for a special ethnic group. B, altering the terms of a loan for a member of minority race. C, refusing to sell a home to a foreign-born home seeker because of poor credit history. Or D, telling nervous owners in a changing neighborhood to sell before their houses lose value. Who says A? Raise your hand. Up high. B. Raise your hand up high. C. Raise your hand up high. D. Raise your hand up high. All right. Here's the thing. A, if we advertise, hey, it's good for white people, then we're discriminating against everybody else. So A is incorrect for that reason. Does that make sense? B, altering the terms for a member of a minority race. Oh, because you're Mexican, as an example, yeah, we're going to charge you a little bit more. We're changing the terms, so that's incorrect. Don't forget, it's permitted, not forbidden. It's permitted. What's allowed? C, refusing to sell a home to a foreign-born home seeker. Because of what?
Poor credit.
Poor credit. Can we discriminate based on credit?
Yes.
Can we discriminate based on income?
Yes.
Yes. If you don't have enough income to pay, or if you don't have a good enough credit, yes, we can discriminate. Good?
Yes.
Awesome. What would D be?
D?
What would it be?
That would be blockbuster.
No,
Not block.
steering.
This is blockbusting. This is steering. Which one is it? Maybe redlining.
No, it's steering.
Ali, can you say it again, loud, please? What is it? Say it.
Blockbuster?
Not blockbuster, but blockbusting. The act of scaring people, of changing neighborhoods
Wait.
to sell their homes before their houses lose value. That is blockbusting.
Score tactics, as you said. Right?
Scare tactics.
Scare.
Scare tactics.
My handwriting.
You don't get your own hand right. You should see Pedro's handwriting,
Oh my god.
right? He says he studied to be a doctor, it's just he didn't go beyond the 4th grade. Anyway, 42. The New Jersey law against discrimination adds to the protected classes under federal fair housing law. A, member of political parties. B, people with prison records. C, welfare recipients. Or D, marital status. All of them? It's New Jersey law against discrimination. Marital status?
D.
These are protected classes, so if you're married, you're protected.
B.
No, wait. Don't just throw numbers out there. I'm just asking.
Letters?
Member of political parties. Definitely not, right?
No.
Definitely not. People with prison records?
No.
No, you cannot.
Definitely not.
See,
Welfare recipients.
housing, welfare.
D.
Correct answer is D.
D?
D as in David.
That makes no sense, Bruno.
That makes no sense, Bruno? Why?
I don't know, but it doesn't.
It's D.
Married to
Well, I'm pretty sure it says it.
Huh?
Pretty sure it says it in the book.
It says in the book on page 60. All right.
I'm gonna look back at that.
Tell them
Back
what.
at it.
Huh?
Because, you know, it's a lady.
Well, I can't tell why it isn't stated.
If they're gays, you know, living over there, it's American Ontario, like, they can
Yes.
still get gays.
Yep. 43. Very good, Alan. Thank you. There you go. For someone specifically retained as a buyer's broker, sellers will be in the position of A, clients, B, principals, C, customers, or D, employers. D, customers, A, clients. Anybody for B, principals? Okay, so we got an all-round answer, right? All right. Here's the thing. If you're specifically retained as a buyer's broker, you are employed. Therefore, the seller is your employer, right? Good so far? And that makes the seller the principal. And if the seller is the principal, the seller is your client. That's the main thing, client.
You went A, B, C.
I know, I went through all of them. Okay, no crunchy stuff. Give me a second. Recording.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that crunchy?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what makes me cringe at the movies. Sorry. Go ahead.
The way you said it, like, I picked A.
I went through all of them, I know. They're all correct. The
Yeah.
seller is your employer, right? Except for C. The seller is your employer. They become your principal, right? But the main thing to remember is that their position is client.
Yeah.
Okay? What is the position? They are your principal, meaning you owe specific duties. But what is their position? Client or customers?
Customers.
Client. Your principal is your client, to who you owe specific duties. Remember this. If I'm hired by the buyer is my client, and everybody else I got to treat fairly and honestly. That's the customer. Okay? If I'm hired by the seller is my client. Okay?
And the buyer's the principal.
Wait, you got me lost.
Wait, now really.
It's the.
Oh, wait. My bad. I'm the one reading wrong. I'm the one reading wrong. All right. Why nobody said I was reading wrong?
It's record, right?
You the teacher, right? We just
We're not even thinking of your instructor.
I'm the instructor.
It's time to quit.
What do you mean quit? I'm entitled to make mistakes,
Okay, so.
You
start
human.
over.
I hope you're human.
right? I am.
That's the only right that we have. So
That's
it's-
it. All right. So let me break it down. I'm sorry, I made a mistake.
So it's the customer.
Okay. Because the question is customer.
It's
C.
customer, right?
C.
You said C is the
It
only
is
one.
possible. I made a mistake.
You said C is the only one wrong.
Yeah.
Wait,
when he was
guys, stop.
Okay.
I made a mistake. Let me explain.
Okay.
Forget everything else I said on this particular question. Forget everything else. Delete.
Okay.
Hit the delete button.
Okay. Can I say something?
Yes.
And then after her, then I said.
Okay. Okay, never mind.
What's your number?
No, never mind. That's my number, never mind.
Never mind is your number.
Yeah.
All right. So I made a mistake because I saw buyers, brokers. I did not see the sellers here. Okay, that was my problem. If you're a buyer's broker, you represent who? The buyer. Therefore, the buyer is the client and the principal.
Okay, so client principal means the same thing.
Client principal means the same thing.
Thank you.
Okay. You represent the buyer. That's what you are, right? But they're asking who the seller is. The seller is the other party,
Right.
who you must treat fairly and honestly. That means the seller is the customer. You represent the client. Whoever you don't represent is the customer.
Thank you.
All right.
No, they
Say again.
but slowly giving it to them.
Slowly giving an example.
Yeah.
Okay. We're getting there. All right, so the question here is, for someone specifically retained as a buyer's broker, so you're the agent being retained by the buyer. That means that the buyer employed you. Yes? If the buyer employed you, then the buyer is your employer, is also your client, and your principal. Right? Because they're all synonymous. They all mean the same. Right? The other party, you don't represent. If you don't represent the other party, that's a customer. Whoever you represent is always the client. Everybody else, customers. So if I represent the seller and 10 buyers come through the door, I have to smile, I have to nod, say yes to almost everything they say. But whose best interest do I have to keep?
The client.
The client, right?
Yeah.
So they're asking, if I represent the buyer, who is the seller?
The customer.
The customer. Good? Yes? And I apologize, probably.
Apology accepted.
Huh?
Apology accepted.
Thank you.
Did you have coffee?
I didn't have coffee, that's the problem.
Nobody gets you.
You need your 4 cups of coffee.
Well, if anybody's offering, I'll take it, just saying.
You're the coffee lady already.
You're the coffee lady.
Barista.
All right. That used to be your job, Ruth, seriously.
She's taking off. She's on vacation right now.
No, in the previous class that we had in Union, she would always get there straight to the coffee for everybody.
No. She's on vacation now.
Now she's on vacation. She's like, hey, I need to pass. Forget the coffee. All right, 44. A broker's principal is the one who, A, pays the commission, B, is the seller, C, hires the agent, or D, brings about the meeting of the minds.
A. C. You couldn't wait for me?
You weren't listening?
Wait,
Thank you. I'm sorry? 43 was C.
I said D.
Say it again.
We're on 46?
Okay.
We're on 46.
44.
Oh, okay. I said A.
Pay the commission, it's not
All right.
the brokes, you know.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand. If you say A. Raise your hand if you say B. Raise your hand if you say C. Raise your hand if you say D. Anybody?
He doesn't hire me.
It doesn't hire the agent?
No, I changed my answer. D.
You change your hand B? Okay. So if I'm the buyer, the buyer's broker, how could it be B?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with A. Does the commission, whoever pays the commission, determine who employed you?
C, yeah.
No.
No.
Right? So that's definitely wrong. Broker's principal could be either the seller or the buyer. Yes.
Wait,
I'm waiting.
for the broker's principal, it should be the broker of record, he's the one that pays the commission. What's
Correct.
the broker's principal? Is this
The
it's not
seller.
the same
The
thing?
principal is your client.
It's where you're getting the money from, right?
Nope.
You're thinking of the wrong. You're thinking of the wrong kind of commission in A. He's not talking about the percentage of a house that you, or like the money that you get. No, he's talking about like the realistic.
Who pays you for doing your job?
That's the broker.
The broker pays. But who pays the broker?
The seller.
Most of the times. But it's whoever agrees.
Oh.
That's the correct answer. Whoever agrees.
About
to
the
pay.
meeting of the minds.
So the question is, a broker's principal, so your client,
Right.
is the one who does what? Pays a commission? Definitely not. Because if you represent the buyer and the seller agreed to pay commission, then it's the customer paying, not the principal. Okay? It's not always the seller because you could be representing the buyer. So A and B are incorrect. Let's look at C and D. A broker's principal is the one who hires the agent.
And we're talking about broker of record, right?
Yeah, that's my question.
Correct.
Okay.
Broker of record. But the agent represents the broker of record. But who hired the agent?
You.
Buyer or seller.
Oh, so where the be?
The principal.
The buyer or seller hires the agent? They hire the broker through the agent. It's different. So the correct answer is
C.
D.
D, meeting of the minds.
What is the meaning of the mind?
Huh? Brings about the meeting of the minds, brings people in agreement. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, tell me why.
Because not always, especially as a buyer's broker, not always do you have a contract written out that says that's the buyer, that you represent the buyer. But you're the one that puts the offer. The moment you put the offer, you represent the buyer, even though there's nothing stated. Once you bring a buyer, but out of these answers, that would be the correct one. Because you don't hire the agent, the broker does. Okay? You hire the broker. The principal hires the broker, not the agent. Okay? So D, the agent or the broker, right, brings about the meeting of the minds. So the principal is the only one that makes decisions here. Do you make decisions? No. Can you, the salesperson or the broker, make a decision for the principal?
No.
So who can make that decision? The principal.
Yeah.
We make no decisions.
Right, but he also hired the broker.
What does it say there? It says broker?
No, it says the broker's principal. So it's talking about the broker, not the principal.
No. Broker's principal.
So
Who
it's
is
talking
the
about
principal? Okay.
Right, the client,
Who hires the agent?
the principal.
The broker.
The principal is the
But I thought the broker was a part of the agency.
The broker is the agency.
Yeah, so
But the question is who hires the agent?
the
The
broker.
principal.
The broker. So what does the broker's principal do?
Oh, I'm still
You
stuck.
What I'm trying to say is that none of the above are correct, only D.
So it's like that's the only answer you can choose.
Correct. So you have to go by process of elimination.
Okay,
The principal is the one that brings about the meeting of the minds,
yeah.
right? If the buyer agrees by putting an offer, and then the seller agrees, those are the principals. They're the ones that come with the meeting of the minds. They're the ones that come into agreements.
Because you can also be a transaction broker,
Ah,
right?
getting there. Okay? Because you can get hired as a transaction broker and not meeting of the minds.
I don't think we'll be able to do chapter
I
9.
hope that they ask that question.
Yeah, chapter 9 is going to be tough. What was your question?
I don't know. You lost.
Okay, so you could get hired as a sales agent, buyer's agent, disposal agent, or transaction broker. Okay? The principal hires who?
The broker.
The broker of record.
So the broker principal.
Who's the principal?
The client.
Okay.
Principal is always the client.
Okay.
Can the client hire the agent?
No.
Can the client pay the commission?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. To who? To the broker.
Right.
All right. Is the client always a seller?
No.
No. All right. Cool. 45. It says, in New Jersey, the broker who wishes to offer services without owing fiduciary duties to either the buyer or seller is allowed to function as A, transaction broker, B, broker's agent, C, independent contractor, or D, attorney in fact. Who says A? Raise your hand. B, raise your
I
hand.
understand this question.
C, raise your hand. And D. Heidi, what did you say?
I didn't answer because I didn't understand.
Okay, so in New Jersey, I'm the broker, but I don't want to operate as a sales agent or buyer's agent. What can I do? What's the other option? If I don't want to represent the seller or the buyer.
Do the transactions like you work with both parties.
I can do a transaction broker while I represent the transaction itself and not the parties. Okay? So transaction broker, that's page, if you want to write it down, that's page 34, page 35. Okay? Page 34, page 35.
That's the one he said he likes to do with the client.
That most agencies nowadays, they like to work as transaction brokers. If a client says, no, you gotta work as a seller's agent, otherwise, or a seller's broker, otherwise we're not doing this. Then it's your choice to either represent the seller with full fiduciary duties, or saying, no, I'll walk away because I don't want that type of liability. And that's what it says. You want to have fiduciary duties or you want to walk away. Okay, so the only way to walk away from it is transaction broker if they accept.
I was gonna say, as a transaction broker, you sort of have.
Guys, any questions I'll address. Please do not comment while I'm addressing your question. Yes.
As a transaction broker, you sort of have more control of the deal as compared
Of the deal itself. Because now you're not liable to one party or the other. You're trying to get the deal done, pretty much.
That's why a lot of people like that.
Yes. So reduces liability of what I'm about to say or do to make this deal happen. All right. Nelly, you're saying something?
No.
Okay.
I told her to put work with both parties so she could remember.
To put what?
To work with both parties, the transaction broker.
I can be a transaction broker and just be on the buyer side. You could be a transaction broker just on the seller side. The thing is, there's no liability. I'm not committed to you.
If you find
I can pass along information to the other transaction broker. Okay? I'm sorry? About the deal. Like, for instance, you tell me that you need to retire. You want to get out of here. Whatever it is. I can give that information to the other party and say, hey, there's a desire. They're motivated to get out of here. Let's make this happen. Meaning, any offer that comes through will be considered. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not saying just lower $10,000. What I'm saying is, bring an offer. It might be considered. Okay, so I'm giving information that should be confidential to you, right? But I'm giving that information to the other party so they help the negotiations
So you
to
guys
be
get
faster.
an agreement.
We always get an agreement. The question is, am I giving privileged information, confidential information, and making myself liable, or not? Okay? If you're going through a divorce, should I give that information to the other party?
If you're a transaction broker.
If I'm a transaction broker, it doesn't matter. Because you allowed me to give this information if needed. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So
I represent the
you're
transaction
open-
itself, not you. So I'm sorry for if you gave me more info than you should. That's pretty much just it.
Basically, keep it
Do you work as
simple.
a transaction broker?
I prefer to work as a transaction broker, again, reducing liability.
Well, as a transaction broker, you care about the deal, you want the deal to go through.
That's it.
That's
And that's why, guys, you need to read and fully understand page 34, page 35. Because when you sit down with your client and talk about the consumer information statement, you have to be able to say, as a seller's agent, this is what you, the seller, should expect from me. As a disclosure agent, hey, if a buyer comes along and I represent the buyer as well, this is what you can expect from me. But you know what? I prefer to work as a transaction broker, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't represent you, I don't represent any other party. I'm trying to get the transaction done. As a sales agent, I'm going to be limited on certain things I can or cannot disclose, or actions I can or cannot take. And that could hinder the transaction, take longer, or even not go through. So Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, do you allow me to work as a transaction broker? Where again, I just manage the transaction. If they say yes, do you owe them anything?
No.
You always owe them something, but it's very reduced in liability. Does that make sense? It's not like, hey, I'm sorry, I said you were getting a divorce. That's why they offered $100,000 less. Sorry, you know? That makes you liable if you're the sales agent. If you're the transaction broker, yeah, I told them you're getting a divorce because you really needed to get rid of your spouse. The deal is going through. Does this make sense? The difference? Yes? Okay. Next, 46. It says, a seller's broker is legally bound to disclose information to a potential buyer about a latent defect, such as A, a previous suicide on the property. B, a rock band that rents the neighboring house. C, the facts that the seller has AIDS. Or D, an unused buried oil tank in the backyard.
D.
Does everybody think it's D?
I think it's C.
Who disagrees with D? Raise your hand. Okay, why C? What does AIDS has to do with the client having AIDS
I
have to
think
do
I
with the property?
understood the question wrong. Can you read it again?
A seller's broker, so I represent the seller, is legally bound, meaning I have to legally disclose information to a potential buyer, meaning to the other party.
Okay. I thought not to discuss, like not to share.
Correct. This says I have to share.
Okay.
That's what we're saying.
D.
What kind of information do I have to share?
The
D. Oil tank. It's a material fact. It is something that could affect the value of the property. If it affects the value of the property, it could affect the transaction itself. Got it?
Yeah.
Because if I know there's an oil tank, I'm not offering you the same amount. The oil tank has to go. Now, either you, Mr. Seller, pays for it, or I will. But if I pay for it, you're lowering the price. You choose. Does that make sense? It's a negotiable point. Yes?
I have a question now. Can you build value in a house? Like, let's say Jennifer Lopez lives next door?
That's. Hey, listen, you're not building value in the house, you're building value in the community.
Yeah, but I'm just
All right. Will it affect the transaction? It depends on the buyer. Will a suicide affect the transaction? It depends on the buyer. It's not something that affects the value of the house itself.
But it's okay to say.
No.
Why not? There's nothing wrong with saying that. I mean, hey, Jennifer Lopez is right next door. First of all, it's J-Lo, because you got to be close.
By the way,
So,
it's her
Jill.
birthday today. She's 50 years old.
She's 50?
She looks stunning.
Anyway, it's on camera, you know, can't say something.
She will be
And most likely she'll be
I know.
All right. Listen, as long as you're not using those as selling tools, you're like, hey, just to let you know, J-Lo's right next door. Because look, as a buyer, I might not want to be next to paparazzi. Like having people crawling out of my property to take pictures of her. Right? No, they came from my property. They dig a hole under a tunnel under my property just to go take pictures of her. You know? You got to remember, what affects the property value? Is J-Lo being next door affect the property value itself?
No.
I think so.
No.
I think you're right.
No. It might affect the motivation of a buyer.
Right.
Wait, so
Okay?
you're gonna get on a home that has an oil tank just because J-Lo lives next door?
Well,
She's not gonna pay the picture of it.
Like, someone, you know, famous.
You think she's gonna invite you over for parties and stuff? Is that what?
No problem.
You never know.
Hey, man,
Okay, let's see.
47. The listing broker must advise the seller about the firm's plan to A, hold open houses, B, share or not share the commission with another broker who produces the buyer, C, reveal confidential information to other brokers, or D, withhold information about felonies committed on the premises.
Hey.
A, B, C, who gives me D? All right, here's the thing. C and D?
I'm wrong.
Huh?
I'm wrong.
What? This is on her face? Let me stress it for a second. So here's the thing. It says that as a listing broker, who do I represent?
Broker.
If I'm a listing broker, who do I represent? The seller, right? Let's start with that. Hey.
Sorry.
Chocolates come this way, not that way. All right.
We don't know who Isa, she brought us something.
She brought this for me.
No, it wasn't my purse, so you need
So listing broker represents the seller. Very important that you know that. Represents the seller. So if I represent the seller, shouldn't I tell the seller, hey, this is my plan to, you know what? Tell everybody that I'm going to give commission to them. That's my plan. No. Reveal confidential information. If I represent the seller, do I reveal confidential information? No. How about D?
D.
There's criminals here. Let me tell you about them. No.
Why? It says withhold.
I think it's
Withhold. Well, either say or not say. It doesn't matter. How does that affect the property value, whether there's criminals or not? It's a jail. I'm selling the jail. Anyway, my intention is marketing. So Mr. Seller here's how I plan to market your property.
Open.
I'm going to do open houses, for instance. Huh? Answer is A.
Okay.
It says, my plan, my.
Sorry, I just. Okay, can I
All of it.
say
It's like a
why?
Give those back. Give those.
Oh, no.
Okay, the reason why I put it with C's
Okay,
was
why?
because
Confidential information to the brokers?
maybe you would tell another broker something about the house that the
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
client
whoa, whoa.
thinks is confidential,
Confidential information. What is confidential?
meaning you can't disclose it.
Something personal.
Okay.
Is there anything about the house that should be confidential?
No, but maybe the client thinks there is, like that hidden oil tank underneath the house.
But that's not, cannot be confidential. That must be disclosed.
That must be disclosed.
That
They
must
could
be
go after
disclosed.
you. They could sue you.
So that means that you.
So confidential are things that affect you personally, like a divorce, the need to move, you're losing the house, you're going bankrupt. Those are personal things that would cause the buyer to be more motivated to offer less, right? Is that, hey, Mr. Sello, I intend to let everybody know that you're going through a divorce. No, that's confidential. We don't provide that information. Remember, the question is, what am I intending? What is our office, our firm, intending to do? Okay, that's the question. It says, the firm's plan is to do what? Our agency plan is to do what? To do open houses. That's the perfect marketing for your property. Show the world that your property is available. Right? We're not going to show the world, hey, if you want to buy this house, there's criminals.
No.
Or,
No, Jay,
hey, you can buy this house, there's no criminals. It's kind of like, not in this one, but let me check the other ones. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Our marketing plan is to hold open houses, to put on the MLS, to put on a bunch of properties, newspapers and stuff. Marketing, that's what it is. 48.
Suggestion.
Yes.
Maybe going to 10:30 is not so bad these last few chapters.
Right. 48. Don't worry, we got an extra 2 days, remember? A broker will need the seller's permission to advertise A, most beautiful house in town. B, handyman special. C, just listed. Or D, try bidding low.
Hey,
Try to beat it already.
I need permission to say just listed? Who said C? Raise your hand if you said C right now.
I did.
hey,
So I need your permission, seller. Hey, I need your permission to say just listed.
no.
Well, no.
No, I want to announce to the world just listed.
Most beautiful house in town.
I need your permission to say most beautiful house in town?
No.
No. The answer is D,
What is bidding?
Why?
offer,
Buying, bidding.
bidding,
Bidding.
offering, low. I need the seller's permission. Listen, I know you're going through the divorce. I'm not going to say that. But, hey, if we need to, so we expedite the situation, is it okay if I say, like, motivated seller? Try bidding
You know
low.
why I got confused with that one? Because of what you explained before, that in order to catch, like,
It's a B.
It's D.
D.
Boo. D.
All right, I'm sorry. And I'll get to you. Yes.
I got confused because I know before you said, like, you can't not disclose, but you can't tell a home saying, like, oh, most beautiful home in town, or there's a Christian church nearby, or like,
Wait.
using those lines.
I could say most beautiful house in town, in my opinion. It's my opinion. That's all. As long as it's an opinion, not a statement of fact, it's okay to say it. But I don't need the permission of the seller to say most beautiful house, because every seller will say, yeah, mine is the most beautiful one.
Yeah.
It's falling apart, but it's the most beautiful one. Everybody will say that. Does that make sense?
You can't say that to a buyer.
Hold on. Hannah? Why did you get confused with B or D?
No, it's like,
She had a number first, sorry. I'll get to yours.
no, it's fine, I understand, but it's like I circle everything because.
Don't forget, I go through process of elimination. I want to make sure you understand why he's not this, why he's not that.
Now I understand
Chris,
why.
we're now serving number 337. Go ahead, you.
So, but like that first statement, most beautiful house in town, can you
Yes.
say that to a buyer,
In my opinion.
in your opinion? But
If you make it as a statement, it could be fraud. If it's not.
it sounds like a statement, that's why.
That's why it depends on what you're doing. It doesn't say opinion or not. It doesn't say it's stated as a fact. But what do I need permission for? The question is not where it's fraud or if I'm allowed or not allowed. The question is, what do I need to ask the seller permission to say?
Go low.
There you go. Go low.
Sell for low.
Then lowball it, that's it. Okay? Melanie, where are you stuck?
Oh, I'm reading for now.
You ready
I
for it
understood,
out loud?
Huh? I wanted to see if I could do it on myself. Oh, sorry.
I thought you were reading it over and over to
I
try to
did.
understand this one.
Oh, no, I was reading over and over too.
Yes.
Why you do need permission to say handyman special,
I do, if it's falling apart.
but you're saying it's like you're gonna offer a
Well,
handyman.
okay,
right?
so what is a handyman special?
I would
Fixer
think-
upper.
Yeah, I would. think
There's
so.
damages to the property. Hey, if you want to buy it, there's damages. I'm literally letting you know you might have to paint. You might have to fix. So I'm giving you a heads up.
Oh, I thought you were offering a maintenance man.
No.
I didn't know that was.
No. Handyman specials is letting the world know this property needs some fixing.
Okay. That's right.
Okay? I would call a handyman special if I needed to paint. I'm not going to paint it.
Okay.
If you want to paint it, paint it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, now it does.
All right,
Now
cool.
it makes-
If you see an ad, handyman special, and you're an investor, go for it. That means it's damaged.
Great.
I used to advertise those all the time. And that's where most of my leads came from. It's like handyman special or fixer upper. Those are people we were looking for back then. Now they're looking for bank owned, even though that era is gone. Bank owned, like foreclosure. 49.
I have a question on this.
About what?
Read and then I'll ask my question.
You guys are regarding 48? Or
49.
never, I know both of you. You know? If the buyers, see they share chocolates, now they share, hey, let's move forward to 49. If the buyers confide to a listing agent that will offer $250,000, but if they don't take it, that we're prepared to go higher. The agent duty is to do what? A, remind the buyers that a seller's agent owes them no duty of confidentiality. B, keep the information to himself or herself. D, help persuade the seller to accept the offer. I'm sorry, C. Or D, refuse to draw up the purchase offer.
I say C.
C, who says A? A? Anybody else? D? Bless you. Okay. So, first of all, it says if the buyers confide to a listing agent. Does it say seller's agent, buyer's agent? Does it say transaction broker?
A.
That was not my question. My question was, does it state what kind of arrangement do we have?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it state seller's agent, buyer's agent, transaction broker? So if we don't know how the listing agent is operating, how can we say that A would be correct?
Right.
Because if I'm operating as a listing agent, right, then I owe confidentiality to one of you.
But you're gonna say how it's like they prepare to
Sorry?
offer more? To go
No, no.
back, if you sell the house,
Okay.
and I'm saying to you, listen, okay, the other sells, okay, continue.
We're going to start with the fact that it says right here, no duty of confidentiality. Since we don't know what type of agency happens between these, we have to consider duty of confidentiality in one of them, seller's agent. Let's start with that. So A is definitely off.
Yeah.
Okay? Because depending on how you represent, there is confidentiality. It's part of COLD, care, obedience, loyalty, accounting, and disclosure. Okay? So immediately, it's part of it. B, keep the information to himself or herself. So the buyer is telling The seller's agent, because listing agent is seller's agent. The buyer is telling the seller's agent, hey, we're offering $250. But if they don't like it, we can go higher. Who do I represent if I'm the listing agent? The seller. So if you tell me, you're the buyer, you're telling me I'm willing to offer more, shouldn't I go running to my client? Would I keep it to myself, thinking they might offer more? No. So B is definitely not. Okay? C, help persuade the seller to accept the offer. I have an offer on the table. The first thing I got to do is present the offer. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
All right? That's the first thing I got to do. And then, what does it mean, help persuade the seller to accept the offer? Huh?
Convince them?
Convince them? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hey, there's an offer on the table. They said $250, so you can either take it or not take it, but
If you don't take it, they're willing to go higher, and then you might use a chance to get it for lower.
or refuse to draw up the purchase offer. We're going to say no. We're not taking an offer. Can we refuse? Does that make sense? So the correct answer is C. We're going to negotiate with the seller. Hey, we got an offer. This is what's happening. Are you interested? It is an offer on the table. It could go higher. Would you like to accept this one? Okay, so the other three are definitely not. The only correct answer, or semi-correct answer, would be C.
C is correct.
I'm sorry?
C is the correct.
Yes.
So in that question, they didn't have, it's not preferred to go higher, and they want the 250 and nothing else. You cannot promise.
No, if they want the 250, it's still an offer.
Still an offer, but.
Let's put it together and present.
But
An offer is an
but
offer. That's what I'm
the
trying to
agent
say.
cannot promise.
I'm not promising anything.
Yeah, but if the question was, there was an answer like that, saying, yeah, we.
Can the agent promise? No. Agents, we cannot promise anything. An offer, so if a buyer brings an offer, does that mean we're going to close?
No.
No, because then the buyer has to have a mortgage or have cash. If they have cash, there's a great possibility that we will close because the cash is there. If they need a mortgage, hey, property needs to be appraised. It might take too long for the buyer to do what they need to do, and then if it takes too long, depending on the type of mortgage, they might not qualify anymore. So I cannot promise anything on any offer. There's no guarantee of closing. Okay? Let me put it this way. How many times you went to the supermarket? And I'll say this because there's more ladies here than men, so it's easier. Sorry, no offense. But how many times you went to the supermarket or a retail store or anything like that, you grab stuff that you intended to buy, and right before you get to the cashier, you're like, nah. All the time.
I hear when they like pull the cart and then they only take one part, like one item.
But does it happen?
Yes.
All the time.
See, when you grabbed it, your intention was to buy. Okay? A month later, you get to the closing table, you're like, nah. Does that make sense? So is it possible that we're not closing?
Right.
What can I promise the seller?
No.
Great service.
Right.
Nothing. You should be promising the most excellent service ever.
You know,
And
I was
patience.
thinking,
I know, you're following my, yeah. That's it. Service. 50.
Finally.
Finally, right? 50. The listing agent who tells sellers that commission rates are standard in this community is in violation of A, New Jersey real estate licensing law, B,
B.
wait. Did I answer? B, National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics, C, Sherman Antitrust Act, or D, Offsite Conditions Disclosure Act.
The correct answer is BB.
What'd you say? BB? No.
It's not B.
A?
Raise your hand if you say A. Raise your hand if you say B. Raise your hand if you say C. Raise your hand if you say D.
Oh, it's D, actually.
Did anybody raise their hand on C?
It's D.
No.
Nobody did, and that's the correct answer.
What? That does not sound familiar.
Sherman Antitrust Act. We cannot. Okay. The reason why New Jersey commissions are negotiable is because of a federal act called the Sherman Antitrust Act. We cannot do any type of price fixing or allocation of customers or markets.
I dropped my pen.
This row, seriously. So price fixing or allocation of customers and markets. The monopoly. We cannot set rates. Remember I said this office can set a rate of 7% within the agency. But if one of the agents goes to the other agency and say, hey, our office is doing 7%, they're conspiring to set standard rates. Okay? Sherman Antitrust Act. You cannot set standards. And the fines were up to $1 million, remember? And potential jail time. How much was the jail time?
5 years.
10 years. Plus legal costs and all that stuff. Okay?
What are we doing?
I'm not going to say full break.
Oh, you're going to dismiss us?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm not going to do chapter 9 in an hour.
Oh, great.
What?
All right. I want to stop for a second, real quick.
What?
Your brain hurts? I know. Q&A is not easy.
I mean, tell me for real. Because
Give me a second.
I need to tell my brother.
What?
You can tell you're right to come here. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I want you guys to now go back to the ones we just did. All right? Some of these questions, some of these answers are very similar to the ones you have at the end of each chapter. So you should now be able to review whatever you already did, right? Because you should have done the review questions already, I hope, right? You can go back, excuse me. You can go back to those and address them. Whatever you feel still uncomfortable with. Because remember, this is just a quiz to see where we are. Okay? It's not a right or wrong thing, it's just to see where we are. And some of you are getting confused with certain things. Okay? I'm not going to address them in detail right now, but you know what you're confused with. What I requested, and I'll keep on requesting, is that you guys send me emails or messages with those questions. Bruno, question 49, you answered A, you explained, but I'm a little lost. Could you explain again? And I told you I will create a video just addressing that particular point. The question you have might be the same question that they have on this side. You guys understand? Stop the flipping for a second. Forget the books. Stop your phone. Stop everything. Focus on me so we can move forward. Okay? My point is, for us to move forward, there has to be clarity. All right? And yes, some of you are losing patience with some questions. All right? For some people, it is normal to catch information at the first try. For others, there's a little bit more difficulty. My job and the way I teach is to try to reach everybody. Sometimes being serious, sometimes with a joke, sometimes drawing. I'll take whatever way I have to take for everybody to understand. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Not everybody learns at the same pace. There's going to be chapters where we all speed up, but a few of you stay behind. And then other chapters where the ones that stay behind are like, oh, I got this. And then somebody else stays behind, and I have to explain. So make sure that when you turn those eyes, roll those eyes, remember, the question might come to you and somebody else is rolling the eyes as well. You got it? It happened to me. In fact, I'll tell you something. When I was in class, I knew most of it because I started as an investor. And 10 years later, I decided to take this class. All right? I'm sitting in class and the instructor goes, Bruno, you know this. Did you ever see, like, maybe you haven't seen in person, maybe you've seen on TV, those cartoons where there's a deer and here comes the car with the headlights? What does the deer do?
Just looks at it.
Right? That's what I felt, and that's what some of you feel, I know. when I ask a question directly to you, right, Ali? You freeze. All right, you freeze right away. You know the answer, but you freeze. And then you get confused, and then you answer something else, and then have to explain a million times because you got confused on your own answer. You see my point? And we're not moving forward. We're wasting a little bit of time. Now, we're still on time. But we're starting to get delayed more and more and more. And I'm going to give you another smackdown, which is phones. You guys keep on going back to your phones during the class. And then, well, wait, what did you say, Bruno? Or the talking. No offense, it's great that you guys are communicating and helping each other. But if you're talking while I'm talking, then somebody's paying attention to you talking versus to me talking. Okay? I don't mind you asking the question again, and again, and again, and again, as long as you're paying attention. You guys got it? My job is to explain a million ways the same question until you get it. If I cannot say it in class, I'll say, hey, send me a message later. But if you're constantly disrupting class, come on, we're not kids anymore. Sorry, Sebastian. We're not kids anymore. Does that make sense? So let's kind of act like grown-ups and have fun in the class. Yes? And then we'll be able to move forward and get done with everything and full understanding. Got it? And the last thing, the very last thing, and that's to all of you, even though only some of you bring food. Chapter 1, I started with introduction. Day 1, introduction. Introduction said no crunchy food.
I wasn't here, sorry.
No excuse. No. The thing is, I'm also recording, guys. All right. I'm also recording. So I got no problem with the food. I told you that. I got no problem at all. Just make sure you bring enough for everybody. So if you make popcorn, make pop for everybody. I'll put a movie on. I know. But before I said bring to everybody.
See the exemption to that rule.
The exemption is as long as everybody gets it, we're good. But I am recording, and the audio, right? Remember, the camera is right there, so the microphone is closer to you guys. Even though it's facing me, it's closer to you guys. So any noise, including the wrapping of the chocolate, will be caught by the microphone. Does this make sense? I want to make sure the audio is as clear as possible, so when you guys hear it at home, it is clear what we're saying. There's already enough echo for being a big room. All right? Yes? Can we work on all this so we can finish the course in time? All right? And please, no more storms. Oh, no, that's not you. Okay. Nature. You feel like what?
I feel like crying. I just thought about my daughter today, like me and her dad went like no at the same time, and she looked at us like, and she put her head.
All right, don't cry because I'm not saying nothing.
We feel so bad.
All right, so here's what's happening. You guys are leaving early. Tomorrow, game face on. Come focused. If you can come early, like be here on time at 7, that'll be great.
You said 7:15.
I'm sorry? 7. 7:15 I start. So if everybody's getting here at 7:15, listen to me. Here we go again. I'm not done. If you guys are here at 7:15 or later, you are disrupting class. Be here at 7. So in case 1 or 2 people come in late, 7:15 I start. 1 or 2 people disrupting class is different than everybody getting here around that time. Okay, what is the time to start? 7. Thank you. If you're on time, you're late. Remember that. So always be earlier than that. All right? Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait,